Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, in this debate today. Our motion today, this House prefers the strategy of pushing for an institutional reform to address police abuse and misconduct rather than defunding the police. I will say thanks for the government team that has defined this motion very clear. Thanks. Well, it's already problematic for America for many years. It's not about racism only. It is about money, economic, and very many things. It is problematic in America. Said government set of the House has said, the victim of racialism itself must happen in the black people. Yes, I agree with that. But I don't agree with the police brutality is always caused by the racialism. I don't agree with that. We against that in the opposition team. But actually he doesn't say about the detail of that kind of institutional reform. We should be very clear about the meaning of the institutional reform it is. There are two burdens in opposition side of the House have to solve in this case. First, to prove that institutional reform doesn't solve this kind of problem. This is racialism. And the second is to prove that defunding the police is better to do rather than institutional reform. Before I go into my argument, two pieces of rebuttal. It is not exclusive for racism issue to say that having diverse people in police department will be very great way to stop racism. Again, because of the government team has said in the first speech, they said 3 people that are black. It means they are talking about racism. So they are not talking about the another cause about that brutality. So again, misunderstanding happen again here. If we look someone doing bad things, we usually judge the people by looking her background, not by the action. So it is very misunderstanding happen here. And the second is racism is not only about violence, physical harm. Racism happens in many ways, like in the social media, not only in the real life. Go on to my argument. I'm gonna bring you 2 arguments that will prove that defunding the police is better to do. The first is, if we see that, if that requirement like that, like to have diverse people in the police department, like 50% is white people and 50% of black people, I think it is not unfair. It makes the racism itself more clear. So people will think like this, like, what? This is very clear racism in here. There are no tolerance anymore in here, because they very clear that they differentiate black people and white people. So it will be more racist to do that. So it is very danger, and it's very potential to be danger to do so. And what we see here is, the second argument is, police department should make the life of people safe and secure, not to make the people feel insecure and feel not peace. But in the reality, the police department do the converse thing. They make the perspective of people bad. But what we see, I don't judge the police department. I judge the individual that do the racism. Again, we don't judge the people, we don't judge the institutional, but we judge the action of racism. But something has forgotten in this debate today. First, America has the ideology of liberalism. They are already liberal. So it is very hard for the government to make a balance right. It is very shallow. It is very kind of problematic for the liberal country to solve this problem. But what we see in here is, to make this kind of thing, to make the police abuse and misconduct stop. And what we have to do is, we have to make a very clear that the action is wrong. Not to make the racism is very clear, not to make the racism more clear, we have to stop the action again. My third argument is, the brutality of police is not only caused by the racism, but there is also the another things that make that police do the brutality of itself. The first is the mentality of the police itself. It means they are already not held in a mental, but that don't mean the police is racism. Like crazy people, they cannot think. They just have the mental problem, so they can do violence to another people. Like the police. The police is not, we cannot judge the police to do that because of the racism. No, we cannot do that. But what we see here, the majority of people that assume that it is a kind of racism that happened in there, because it is very problematic in America, in a liberal country, to do so and to fix the perspective of the people. And the last is the defending of the police. In the information slide has said before, is defending doesn't mean abolishing. So it is very clear and better for the police itself to know the cause of why they doing that, why they are doing that violence, what they are doing, the brutality. Again, we have to make these kind of things, racism, stop very soon. So it is like rehabilitation for the police. The police doesn't feel this is a conflict and this is a racism, and it will make many disaster in the racism issue. So proud to oppose. Thank you.